My husband threw a glass of cold water on me because I didn't make his coffee fast enough. 5 months after I gave birth to his daughter, my husband threw water on me on a Tuesday morning. Cold water, a full glass, right in my face while I was sitting on the couch breastfeeding our baby. Our daughter was 5 months old. She was latched on and feeding, and he walked over and dumped an entire glass of ice water on both of us. The baby screamed. I was soaked. He put the empty glass on the counter and said, "Maybe next time you'll remember my coffee." Then he grabbed his keys and left for work. I sat there holding my crying baby with water dripping off both of us for 10 minutes before I could move. That was not the first time. My husband's name is Wade. When I was 7 months pregnant, my feet were so swollen I couldn't wear shoes. Wade came home one night and saw I hadn't folded the laundry. He picked up the basket and dumped the entire thing on the bed where I was lying down. He said the house is a mess and you've been home all day. I was growing his child inside my body. When the baby came, I was in labor for 22 hours. I had an emergency delivery. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Wade visited once, for 40 minutes. He spent most of it on his phone. When I came home, I could barely stand up from the stitches. Wade asked me what was for dinner. There was nothing in the fridge. He ordered himself a pizza and didn't ask if I wanted anything. I ate crackers while I nursed our daughter. For 5 months, I did everything. Every feeding, every diaper, every bath, every midnight wake up. Wade never changed a single diaper. He said it was disgusting. He slept in the guest room because the crying bothered him. I also worked. Bookkeeping from home, $1,800 a month. He made 24. He never once acknowledged I was working too. Wade expected his coffee at 6:15 every morning. Not 6:20, not 6:30, 6:15, in a specific mug, black, 2 sugars. If it was late, he wouldn't say anything at first. He would just look at the empty spot on the counter where the mug was supposed to be and then look at me. The morning he threw the water, I had been up since 3 with the baby. She had a fever. I'd been walking her around the living room for hours trying to get her temperature down. I finally got her to latch and feed at 6:10. I was sitting on the couch exhausted. I hadn't slept in over 20 hours. The coffee wasn't ready. Wade walked in, saw the empty coffee maker, opened the cabinet, filled a glass with water and ice, walked over to the couch and poured it on me and his daughter, his sick daughter. After the water, things got worse. Wade started leaving lists on the counter every morning before work. Actual written lists. Dinner ready by 6. Living room vacuumed. His work shirts ironed. The baby bathed and quiet. If something wasn't done, he would stand in front of whatever it was and wait for me to notice. He wouldn't say a word. He would just stand there staring at the unfolded towels or the dishes until I got up. One night, I was feeding the baby in the rocking chair and he walked in and put a dirty plate on the armrest next to me. Didn't say anything, just put it there and walked away. I was supposed to wash it while nursing his child. My mother knew something was wrong. She kept asking every time she called. I kept saying everything was fine. Then she came to visit on a Saturday morning without telling me first. Wade was home. The house was clean because I'd spent the entire previous night making sure it was. But the coffee maker was still running because it was 6:12 and it wasn't done yet. Wade came in, saw the coffee wasn't poured, and said to me right in front of my mother, "It's 6:15, and you still can't get this right." My mother looked at me. I looked at the floor. She didn't say a word. She just watched. That afternoon, Wade left to meet his friends. The second his truck pulled out of the driveway, my mother looked at me and asked me how long this had been going on. I told her everything. When I was done, she picked up my daughter and held her. Then she called my father. He was there in an hour. My father walked into that house, looked around at the list still stuck to the fridge, saw the specific mug sitting on the counter with a sticky note on it that said 6:15, not 6:30, and sat down at the table. He looked at me and said, "Pack what you need for the baby." We went home, not to Wade's house, to the house I grew up in. The room I slept in as a kid still had my old bookshelf in it. My mother set up the crib right next to my bed. My father unloaded the car. That night, my daughter slept in a warm room with clean sheets, and I slept for 8 straight hours for the first time since she was born. Wade called the next morning at 6:16, 1 minute after his coffee was supposed to be ready. I didn't answer. He called again at noon. I didn't answer. He sent a text that night that said, "The house is a mess and there's no dinner." I wrote back one sentence. "Your daughter had a fever and you poured ice water on her." He didn't respond for 2 hours. My mother Silver sat with me that night while Nell slept and told me you don't owe him a second chance just because he gave you a child. No, but my father Mickey had already started looking into options. I wasn't running. I was planning. The next morning I woke up and just laid there for a minute. Not because I was tired, because it was quiet. No list waiting on the counter. No mug with a sticky note. No footsteps reminding me I was already behind. I had slept the whole night again. 2 nights in a row. I didn't even know my body could still do that. Nell was in the crib next to my bed, awake, just looking around with her big eyes like she was trying to figure out where we were. I picked her up and fed her in the quiet of that room with the morning light coming through the curtains my mom picked out when I was 12, and I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it. Calm. Just calm. No tightness in my chest. No checking the clock. No listening for heavy boots on the floor. When I came out, Silver was already at the stove. She had eggs going and toast on a plate and coffee in the pot. She didn't leave a note. She didn't time it. She just made breakfast because that's what mothers do when their kid comes home. Mickey was at the table and he looked up when I walked in and gave me a small nod. That was it. Just a nod, but it was steady. It was the kind of look that said, "I'm here and I'm not going anywhere and you don't have to earn it." Then my phone buzzed. A text from Wade. It wasn't like the others. It said, "I miss you." 3 words. I hated that they pulled at something in my chest. An hour later it buzzed again. "I miss Nell." Another hour. I know I messed up. Each one short, each one soft. By that evening, Wade had sent a longer one. He said he hadn't slept. He said the house felt empty. He said he wanted to be better. He asked if he could come by and see Nell, just to hold her. At the end he wrote, "She's my daughter too." I sat there with my thumbs hovering over the screen. I started typing, "Maybe you could come by tomorrow." I was so close to saying yes. Silver walked in and saw my face and sat down next to me and said, "Read me what he wrote." I read all of it out loud. When I was done, she asked me one question. Did he ask how her fever is? I scrolled back through every message. "I miss you. I miss Nell. I know I messed up." The long one. Not once. Not one single time did he ask if she was okay. Not is her fever gone. Not is she eating. Not did you take her to the doctor. The baby he poured ice water on while she was burning up 2 days ago. He didn't ask. I deleted what I was typing. leaving. I looked at Silver and said, he doesn't miss her. He misses being served. Silver squeezed my knee once, and that was it. That was the moment something locked into place. Wade didn't get bored. Wade got strategic. Mickey said men like him don't send texts forever. They show up. They perform. The very next afternoon, I heard his truck pull into the driveway. The doorbell rang. Mickey opened the door, and there was Wade on the porch in a clean button-down shirt, shaved, hair combed, flowers in one hand, the grocery store kind with the plastic still on. In his other hand, a little brown bear with a ribbon around its neck. For Nell, he had props. He smiled at my father, not big, just respectful, and said, I just want to talk. I'm not here to cause problems. His voice was so calm it made me sick, because I knew that voice. That was his outside voice. Mickey didn't move. He stood in the doorway and didn't open it wider. Wade spoke softly. I respect you, sir. I just want a chance to make things right. Then he looked past my father at me, 15 feet back in the hallway with Nell against my chest, and his voice cracked right on the word, daughter. I just want to hold my daughter for 5 minutes. It sounded real. It sounded so real, I almost took a step forward. For 1 second, I didn't see the man who poured ice water on me. I saw the man in the hospital parking lot who held my hand when we saw the positive test. I saw the man who cried in the delivery room. I wanted so badly for that man to be real. Silver moved between me and the door. She turned to me and said quietly, it's your call. And it was. I looked at Wade. I looked at the flowers. I looked at the stuffed bear with its little ribbon, tags probably still on the back. Then I looked down at Nell. She was asleep. Her fever was gone. Her skin was cool. She was finally resting. And I thought about ice water running down my chest and hitting her face and her screaming so loud I could feel it in my ribs. I thought about the dirty plate on the armrest. I let one breath out and I knew. I looked at Wade and I said, you can leave the toy on the porch. You're not coming inside. His face changed, fast. The softness in his eyes went flat. His jaw tightened. His hand squeezed the flower stem so hard I could see the plastic bunch up in his fist. For that half second, the mask came off and I saw him. The real him. Then it was gone. He put the bear down on the porch railing, nice and gentle. He set the flowers next to it like he was placing them on a grave. He straightened up and his voice was calm again but different, flat. He said, I'll give you time, but she's my daughter and I have rights. He walked down the porch steps. At his truck, he looked back across the front yard and said, this isn't over. Mickey closed the door. I heard the lock turn. My hands were shaking so bad I had to press Nell closer to my body so I wouldn't drop her, but I didn't let him in. After he left, Mickey sat me down and said, he didn't come here for Nell. He came here to test if the door was still open. He was right. Wade wasn't grieving. He was measuring. Wade started calling the next day. Not me. Silver. Then Mickey. Then voicemails. He sounded like a man at the end of his rope. I just want to co-parent peacefully. I just want to be part of my daughter's life. So calm, so reasonable. If you didn't know him, you'd think this poor guy was being kept from his kid by a crazy family. He called every day, sometimes twice. Always Silver or Mickey, never me. Silver saved every single one. She didn't delete a thing. My oldest friend Carlotta came over that Wednesday with food and a notebook with a blue cover. She sat at the table and said, show me everything. I pulled up every text Wade had sent. I played every voicemail. She listened without a word. When the last one finished, she said, listen again. Every text, every voicemail. Tell me what's missing. We went through them all. Carlotta tapped the screen every time Wade said my daughter, my house, my rights, my family, my kid. Not once did he say our daughter. Not once did he say the baby. And not once, in any of those texts or voicemails across an entire week, did he ever say Nell's name. Carlotta put the phone down and said, he doesn't see her as a person. He sees her as something he owns. Same way he saw you. Then she slid the notebook across the table. Write it all down. Every date. Every time. So I did. 3 hours later, my hand was cramping, and I had 11 pages. 11 pages of things my husband had done to me in less than a year. When you live through it one day at a time, you tell yourself each thing is small. It's just laundry. It's just a look. It's just cold water. But when you line it all up on paper, 11 pages of it, front and back, you can't call it small anymore. 2 days later, Wade sent me a text directly for the first time. If you don't let me see Nell by Friday, I'm going to have to do what I have to do. No explanation, no details, just that one line. I showed it to Mickey. He read it once and said, that's not a request. That's a threat dressed up in nice clothes. The point wasn't the action. The point was the fear. He wanted me to sit there and wonder, but I wasn't going to fall apart. Not this time. Mickey didn't wait either. That weekend, he went to the hardware store and came back with a box under his arm. He installed a doorbell camera on Saturday. Sunday, he changed the locks, both doors. When he was done, he came inside and held up 2 new keys and said, this is your home for as long as you need it. Nobody gets in who you don't want in. The metal was still warm from his hand. I thought about the house I shared with Wade. I never once felt safe in it. Wade never changed a lock for me. Wade made sure his coffee was on time. That was what mattered to him. Then Wade went quiet. 3 full days of nothing. No calls, no texts, no truck in the driveway. The silence was worse than the noise. When Wade was calling and showing up, I at least knew where he was. The quiet meant he was somewhere thinking, planning. Carlotta said silence from a man like that isn't surrender, it's strategy. The hardest night came on Wednesday. Nell started crying around midnight and she didn't stop. I fed her. I changed her. I walked her around the room. I bounced her. Nothing worked. She just screamed and her face was red and scrunched up, and I was pacing that little bedroom back and forth, my bare feet on the carpet, my eyes burning. The walls felt like they were getting closer with every lap. It was 2 a.m. I had been at it for 2 hours straight. Then my phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from Wade. See? You can't do this alone. I stopped pacing. I stood there in the middle of the room with Nell crying against my chest, and I stared at those 7 words. And the worst part, the part I'm not proud of, is that for about 30 seconds, I believed him. My thumb hovered over his name in my phone. I was so close to pressing it. Then the bedroom door opened. Silver was standing there in her robe with her hair messy and her glasses on. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just walked straight over and held out her arms and said, go to sleep. I've got her. I handed Nell over. Silver took her and started doing that slow rocking thing she used to do with me when I was little. She walked out of the room without another word. I sat on the edge of the bed and the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears rolling down my face. I didn't call Wade. I didn't text him back. I put the phone face down on the nightstand. Then on Tuesday evening, evening, my phone buzzed. One text from Wade. I'll be at your parents' house tomorrow at noon. We're going to talk, all of us. Mickey set the phone down and said, good, let him come. Wade knocked at exactly noon. 2 knocks. Firm, and even like he was showing up for a meeting he expected to run. Mickey opened the door and stepped aside, and Wade walked in like he owned the room. He was wearing his work boots, the heavy ones that left marks on the floor. Chin up. Silver was at the table with a mug of tea. Carlotta was right next to her with her arms crossed. I was standing by the counter, not sitting, not holding Nell, just standing there with my hands at my sides and the blue notebook behind me on the counter. Nell was in the back bedroom with the door closed. Wade's eyes went to the table, then to Silver, then to Carlotta, then to me, and kept moving like he was looking for something he couldn't find. Then he looked back at me and said, where's my daughter? Just like that. Not hi. Not thank you for letting me in. Just where's my daughter? Like she was a thing he left somewhere. I looked right at him and said, she's safe. This conversation isn't for her. His jaw tightened. He expected the prop. It wasn't there. He pulled out a chair, nobody invited him to, and dropped into it and put both hands flat on the table like he was about to run a meeting. He said, I've been thinking. I know I've made mistakes, but you took my child out of my house without telling me, and that's not right. I want to work this out. I want us to go home. His voice was steady, smooth, like he had practiced it in the truck on the way over. I didn't sit down. I let the silence sit. Then I said, you threw ice water on your 5-month-old daughter because your coffee wasn't ready at 6:15. Do you remember that? Wade blinked. Quick, that wasn't in his script. He recovered. He said, I lost my temper. It won't happen again. And I said, which time? He didn't have an answer. His mouth opened and closed and nothing came out. So he turned to Silver. He put on a face somewhere between respectful and hurt and said, I've always provided for your daughter. I gave her a home. I gave her everything she needed. Silver looked at him for a long second. Then she spoke. My daughter ate crackers for dinner while you ordered yourself a pizza. Her voice was calm. My granddaughter had a fever and you poured ice on her. You visited the hospital once for 40 minutes when your child was born. Tell me again what you provided. Wade's face went red, deep blotchy red climbing past his jaw to his ears. He turned away from her and tried Mickey. He leaned in, voice lower, more man to man, and said, you know what it's like? You've been married. You know it's not always perfect. Mickey hadn't moved the whole time. Now he leaned forward and looked at Wade and said, I've been married 31 years. I have never once raised my hand, my voice, or a glass of water to my wife. Don't compare yourself to me. The words landed like a door slamming shut. Wade did what he always did when he started losing. He got bigger. He stood up so fast the chair scraped back. He raised his voice for the first time, loud enough to fill the room, and pointed at Carlotta and said, why is she even here? This is a family matter. Carlotta didn't flinch. She looked up at him and said, I'm here because I'm the one she called at 2 in the morning when she was afraid to put the baby down, because you told her the house better be clean by sunrise. Wade stared at her. His hand was still in the air, still pointing, but his face went blank. He didn't know about those calls. He had no idea that all those nights he was sleeping in the guest room with his door shut. I was on the phone with Carlotta crying into a towel so I wouldn't wake the baby. He didn't know, and now he did. He dropped his hand. He turned back to me. His voice dropped again, almost soft, almost the porch voice. You're really going to throw away our family over some rough mornings? I reached behind me and picked up the notebook. I opened it to the first page, and I started to read. Not all 11 pages, just the parts that mattered. I read the date he dumped the laundry basket on my pregnant body. I read the date and time he put a dirty plate on the armrest while I was nursing Nell at 2 in the morning. I read the date of the ice water, the time, 6:13. I read what Nell's temperature was that morning, 101.4. I read the words he said after he poured it. Maybe next time you'll remember my coffee. I read 6 entries total, slowly, clearly. Each one landed in the room like a stone dropping into still water. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. I could hear my own voice bouncing off the cabinets. When I looked up after the 6th entry, Wade was sitting back down. His hands were in fists on his lap, curled so tight his knuckles were white. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the table. I closed the notebook. I put it down. I looked at Wade and I spoke slowly so he would hear every word. You didn't lose your temper. You had a system. You had a schedule. You had lists. You had a mug with a sticky note that said 6:15, not 6:30. That's not anger. That's control. And I'm done being controlled. Wade stood up again. This time he moved toward me. Not fast. Forward. 1 step. His face was tight and his fists were still clenched. Then Mickey stood up. My father didn't say a word. He just rose to his full height and stood between Wade and me, and he didn't have to say a thing. Wade stopped like he had walked into a wall. He looked at my father, then passed him at me. His eyes were hard and flat. Nothing soft left. He said, you'll regret this. I held his eyes. I didn't look at the floor the way I used to. I didn't fold my hands or drop my shoulders. I said, the only thing I regret is not leaving the first time you made me feel like a servant in my own house. Wade held my gaze one more second. Then he turned and walked to the front door. He opened it. He stepped out onto the porch, and he closed the door behind him, quietly, with a soft click. The lock turned. The flowers were still on the railing. I went down the hallway. Nell was awake in the crib. I picked her up. Outside, a truck started and pulled away.